Welcome to the favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Action Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. We have a huge show today as we are counting down the days to the draft. We will get to our guest, one of the premier podcasters in the NFL space, one of the premier evaluators of college football talent. He's got a lot of hot quarterback takes. But first, I am joined by my BFF, my co-host, my companion, my compadre, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, how we doing, brother?
Listen, man, one of us is fresh off a wild, I can't even describe it as enthusiastically as I would like to, a wild night at WrestleMania in Philly. The other has been chasing the solar eclipse. If our listeners had to bet on who did what, I'm fairly certain they would have bet on you losing your mind at WrestleMania and the Undertaker's appearance and the hair-raising moment when the entire stadium went black, and me nerding out over the eclipse and the sun going black. Alas, Simon, what happened?
Yeah, my original plans, Chad, were to head up to Buffalo, but anyone that knows anything going on with the solar eclipse knows it was all about the cloud coverage, where the clouds were going to be, where they weren't going to be. So, yeah, I made a last-minute decision, drove towards Rochester, where our good friend Matt Mitchell is from, which I'd never been to. Sadly, still never been there, because I ended up in a lovely town called Atlanta, New York. And if you've never heard of Atlanta, New York, neither have I until about 7 hours ago. Made a decision to drive there just because they're predicted to not really have any clouds, and I got really lucky. No clouds for about two full minutes of the 3 minutes that I saw the total eclipse. So cool experience. You don't really know how to describe it. I mean, you can see it online, people can see things of it, but seeing it in person, it's just crazy. It's just another reminder we're flying through space at millions of miles per hour around a nuclear bomb that's exploding a million times over every second. It's a crazy feeling looking up at the moon in front of the sun. But yeah, Chad, get to it. WrestleMania. Tell us all the
Listen,
deets.
a couple things. Number one, if you want to feel small, sit ringside at WrestleMania with 75,000 people going crazy. Our buddy Seth Rollins, his entrance was supreme. He basically had a Mardi
You
Gras.
standing on your chair?
It was, honest to God, it was freaking insane. Had so much fun. The electricity was pulsating, and yeah, like, Logan Paul was there as a villain. The Rock came out as a villain. The Undertaker was there to body slam The Rock. It was just a battle royale at the end, and I was literally ringside for all of it. Like, I've got pictures basically up these guys' nostrils when they're standing on the top rope. It was so freaking insane. And then afterwards, me and my kid were walking through the bowels of the link because our seats were on the floor. So when you left, you walked out of the tunnel right at the entrance of the stadium. And there's John Cena walking around in his jorts with no shirt. He just walks by, he goes, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And it was like, my kid was like, "What the freak is happening right now?" And the best part is we got to take home our chairs. So like we walked out of the stadium with our chairs, and I can't believe it didn't get violent. Like, the crowd is so energetic and enthusiastic and happy to be there. It's a wonderfully communal experience. What I'm sure it was like to watch the eclipse. But Simon, we got to get to business.
Get to it.
2 weeks away. So today's show, we are welcoming back a very special guest to talk about the NFL draft, the most relentless NFL draft and film breakdown obsessives you'll find anywhere. He's got a dulcet tone to his voice. We love having him on the show. From the Athletic Football Show, Nate Tice. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've heard of Sherman's March to the Sea in Atlanta. but that was Simon's March 2C. That was
Well
I was
done.
able to write a joke. I was able to write a joke there. So that was good. I knew there was something there and I found it. I found it. I'm jealous of the chair. I knew that you got to take home the chair.
Yeah.
I've seen AEW here in Vegas. So I kind of like I was a huge wrestling fan growing up and then got away from it. And then like post college got back into it as I was living alone and bored. And which kind of seems like it. Like kind of seems like when I went to AEW, I was like my people. But I was like, yeah, but I started getting back into AEW and I went to that event and it's one of those seeing it live. And you could watch it as much as you want. You could grow up around it. You could see it as many times as you want on TV. You watch it live and you get a new appreciation for what these psychos are doing in the ring and just like how big they are and how fast they're moving. So I was enthralled listening to you talk about that because like you said, you just watch them buy something and you hear the noise, you hear the guys crash through a table or something. You're like, oh,
Yes.
or a chair back in the day to the noggin. They don't really do that so much anymore. But I remember I was like 9. I saw Scott Steiner whack someone with a chair over the head. I looked at my dad and I was like, that's when I realized it's like, oh, they ain't faking this. Like they're not pulling back like me and my friends are. That was a real chair to the head. So
Yeah, these
I was
guys
kind
are
of,
supreme athletes. They are
oh
jumping
yeah,
off the top rope at 240 pounds, 260 pounds, and
it's
they are
insane.
doing full on flips, landing on top of each other.
Yeah.
It was,
And they can't
it
go
was
slow.
amazing.
Yeah.
It
If they
was
go
amazing.
slow, they get hurt. It's insane. They're
Uh,
absolutely insane.
all right, we're going to dig in deep on the quarterbacks today. You've got a very hot take that is, you know what? It's breaking up the draft community. It really
Oh,
is. We're going to have to dig into it.
okay.
As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by North Carolina's newest sportsbook, Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power out the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for the biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boosts. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. As a reminder, catch every episode of The Favorites live on YouTube for those enjoying on YouTube right now. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. I should tell people if I sound a little bit off today, I am in Boulder, Colorado. My family and I flew from Philadelphia to Boulder. We're touring University of Colorado. My younger son, so we're recording this from a hotel room. Nate Tice. Look, everyone is
First
on.
take.
Everyone is on Caleb Williams, #1 overall prospect for everybody except one person. His name is Nate Tice.
Oh, if that's fair. There's others. There's dozens of us.
Dozens. It's
There's
a
dozens of us.
goddamn movement.
There's some May, and I've seen some Jane Daniels thrown in there, which is like to me is the hottest scorcher of hot takes. This is how I've had to clarify it. It's a 1A, 1B situation for me. I freaking love Caleb as well. I love Caleb Williams. I think he's a stud. Got to break him down like a month ago for Yahoo. Not like a month ago for Yahoo. And just came away even more impressed than I was going in as far as accuracy, what he could do from the pocket. The thing is, Maye has been kind of my guy since day one. And since last May, no pun intended, but since last May, when I first studied these guys full on, watching their 2022 tape, it's like this Drake Maye looks like the guys that the elite quarterbacks look like right now, as far as size, as far as arm talent, as far as aggressiveness. Not that Caleb isn't. I just think Maye kind of is more so, and I could see a kind of a cleaner path there, even if it's the kind of takeaways the last month that have kind of driven me crazy is that he's further away, which we can get into if we want. But every time I've had to kind of bring this up on a show, like a mock draft or a big board or anything, it kind of rekindles, like, because it's been May 1A since September on everything. So I do a mock and I have him the first pick. And then it's like my Twitter mentions rekindle for a little bit. And then about a month, it goes away for about 6 weeks. And then I do another mock or another big board. And then it rekindles again. Oh, you're the May guy? Okay. And it goes away. So I updated my big board, comes out Monday. I thought this would happen on Friday. They released it on Monday. So yeah, so there's the scorcher of a hot take. That's just like, I've kind of reconciled with it already. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with this. I'm at peace. So I'm kind of I'm at peace with it all, I guess, because I just think these two quarterbacks, May and Williams, are just prizes. And I think others have I've been weirded by the takes a little bit that people are watching this and coming away differently, because I think it's kind of clearly so about what they could become.
So tell me what you mean by weirded.
I think people are getting scared off about a couple misses he has, and because he's an ugly misser, I call it, like just like a fastball pitcher or even Justin Herbert in the NFL is a good comparison for this. They won't miss often, but when they do, it's about 10 yards wide, or they're a line drive thrower, so it just misses hard as opposed to misses often. So it's a bad miss. And I think that's been sticking out in people's head. So there's been kind of a narrative about him is that he's this pocket passer that's not athletic and just stands there and sprays the ball over the yard, good or bad, and misses. Like he's just an unaimed tank, howitzer tank. And I think it's different. I think he's a fantastic athlete, like a really good athlete. And I think that's what people have been missing about him. I think that he's has a clear projection because he's already shown enough mentally, physically to be a good quarterback. And I already think he has a high floor. And it's just funny that others are going like, yeah, he can't fix it. It's like, he's already doing it. I don't know what we're talking about here. I think the little negatives are getting kind of extrapolated as opposed to all the positives that he can bring to the table.
You would agree, though, that it's definitely safer to take Williams as a front office, right?
Yes.
Than it would be to take May.
Yes. I completely understand taking Williams one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is they're both graded highly for me. So it's not like me going like, oh, they're so dumb. I think I totally get it. And I'm talking about optics. So yeah, I totally understand that. And there originally was some negatives about Caleb, about he's too much of a runaround guy. Like he's not too much in pocket. The more you dive into him, he's a different animal completely than Justin Fields. So it's not like, oh my God, we just shipped Justin Fields off and we're drafting the exact same guy. That would be Jayden Daniels, but not Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is his own type of thing. So if I were the front office of Bears, that would be the easiest one to sell. And I totally get it because he has that mega star potential. Like I think both of these guys do, but Williams does too, of course.
Well, I guess that becomes the conversation, right? If you are in the front office and look, you come from a football family,
Yeah.
these conversations as intimately as anybody. If you're the coach, if you're in the front office, there's no upside in drafting Drake May. Like the difference between them, as you say, is either minuscule, or the difference between them is an ocean-wide gulf. And in either case, you need to take the Caleb Williams pick, because that is the one where it is unreproachable. Like you will not get fired for taking Caleb Williams in 2 years. He will have the benefit of the doubt.
And yeah, there's also just the optics of it, of what you sell. If the entire contingent of the Bears went to Drake May's pro day and Keenan Allen's there, high five and everything, everyone goes, God, check out May. Because as of December, it was not a big gulf between these two. There were several like people that had May just the same. There was an article written by Charles Robinson, my peer at Yahoo. I should say peer, but my coworker at Yahoo. And in that article, they were saying this is going to be a tight battle through April, but also it's just what's told and what's the optics of all of it. So I'm saying if they send that entire contingent to Jayden Daniels, everyone will go, man, yeah, the Heisman Trophy winner. Totally get it. Because we've seen the exact same thing happen with Bryce Young, who I'm still stunned was the number one pick. We've seen the entire thing happen with the Steelers going like, hey, we're whining and dining 3 different quarterbacks, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell. Kenny Pickett's our guy. We love him because he's right next door. And everyone goes, of course, Kenny Pickett's the first guy taken. No one remembers that was a battle for number 2 pick the year before that. Zach Wilson. It was a tight battle between 3 different guys. And all of a sudden, Zach Wilson, by December, Joe Douglas is telling everyone that Zach Wilson's their guy. And everyone goes, well, of course, Zach Wilson's the second best guy. It's kind of just, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as what you sell. But I do say it's like, yes, going in, I mean, the narrative during the season after the Notre Dame game was, oh my God, is this guy going to be a franchise quarterback? What if Bears contingent's like, yeah, keep hyping that up. We don't like him, actually. We don't like him. That's kind of just how the game kind of works behind the scenes too. So that's just kind of my other way to look at this, is if they sent the whole contingent to that World Pro Day and May did what he did, the people that are like May people will go, oh yeah, obviously he's been the guy. Size, that's what Ryan Poles likes. It's just kind of what you're going to argue for that.
Simon, Can you name the fastest growing ticketing app in the United States?
Game time.
That's right. It's Game Time. I love Game Time for two reasons. First, they still sponsor this show. Second, I actually use Game Time all the time. They have amazing last minute deals on pro and college sports. Speaking of which, I'm opening the Game Time app right now from my hotel here in Colorado. Look at this. I can see the Denver Nuggets, defending champion Denver Nuggets, $80 against the Timberwolves, the best team in the West. No matter where you live, download the Game Time app, get out, have some fun this week. You deserve it. You can redeem code favorites for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, just download the Game Time app and use code favorites for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Yeah,
I'll say for Nate.
Yeah, go ahead, Simon.
I'll say Nate's not one of these people in media that, I've seen your stuff for the years. You don't just put stuff out there because you are, friends with the agents of these guys. And,
No.
Even go back to your draft last year, you were one of the few people like me who had CJ at 1 and then Richardson at number 2. Or at some point you flip-flop those guys. There was never a time where I think most people were just, it felt like in media were just lying, where they were like, no, Bryce Young is the slam dunk number 1 guy. He should be the number 1 pick. Where I think a lot of people straddled the line where I was the extreme, where I was like, no, Bryce Young's a second-round pick. And I took tons of heat for that, which I'm sure you're dealing with the same thing now with Drake Maye, which is like fans of these schools. So, guys who are diehard fans of Williams, they're going to be in your mentions. They're going to be commenting on anything you post, which I dealt with Alabama people with Bryce Young. They're just like, you don't know ball. You don't watch college football. And it's like, I don't, but I watch film. I think anyone scouting these guys watch film. So it is interesting hearing your take because you've had the time to go through it all and you're still dug in on Drake Maye, which I can't fault you for it. Like you are seeing something, you believe in him in a way that, like you said, the difference isn't that big between him and Williams. It's just your preference. If you were in the spot and the owner said to you, who do you prefer here? And it's your job as a scout, you would say it's 1A, 1B, but I do have Drake as 1A. Now, these kind of moments are career builders where if you hit that right and they take the other way, that GM gets fired, you could be the next guy in line to take his job because you were right on that 1A, 1B position. Yep. Or you hit this wrong and he's going to be side-eyeing you, or you have to leave that organization because in 10 years, you're going to be in the same exact spot. So what you're doing here, it is bold in NFL terms, where someone like me, I'm doing the coward way. Yeah. I have Daniels just slightly ahead of Drake Maye. Like you just said, my 1A, 1B for them. I just respect that Daniels, again, this is not a knock on Drake Maye, and I'm sure you've heard this from scouts. Apparently, he is not the most coachable guy in all of football, right? Like he again, I'm not saying he's not coachable, but what I've heard from Daniels is incredibly well at being coached, where a coach could tell him to do something and he'll correct it. He'll work on his footwork. He'll work on his arm throwing. Maye is going to have to work on his footwork and his throwing style. Have you thought about all that when you're evaluating these quarterbacks? Or are you just like, his talent level is so high, I don't really care about that stuff. He'll be able to coach, be coached how to use his feet and how to work on his arm angle.
Yeah. Well, first, the first thing you said is like, yeah, I try to be completely independent of listening to anybody. And I think that's it's a fallacy that a lot of us fall into. And what I've seen as I joined media, it's like, just stick with your guns. Just stick with your opinion. Just because other people like guys, everyone, like if you go into scouting room, there's 9 different opinions on a guy.
Yeah.
There's 9 different reports. You think there's a consensus? There's never one. I've seen some of the most outlandish grades on guys, and that would just be like people in the like would just lose their minds. It's like these are NFL teams that come up with this. But I think the last year was a good learning lesson because I had people going like, well, you liked Young. And I go, well, I wasn't killing him, but it was pretty obvious who I preferred. I was saying like, yeah, I wouldn't do it, but I guess if this is what you prefer, because again, this is the whole argument sense where people are bringing up, say, the S2 test or saying what he was accomplishing post after the Steph Curry comparisons and all that, those types of things. And the number one thing that stood out to me was the size outlier. And they're saying that the risk of taking a legit, like literal historical size outlier, not just in the first round, but number 1 overall and trading up for him. Like to me, that was just like, no freaking way would I ever do that in a million years. Stroud, even to me, even if you don't love him, it's like that's the safe one. But it was just, to me, it was the safe one with upside. To me, it was an easy number 1 pick to take. And then Richardson was the home run swing, but that had a lot of other stuff underneath. So to me, it was like, those are what flavor you want, not the historical outlier. And I think when I've gone to this year and watching Maye, is he does the things that the good ones do and the stuff that's hard to teach. And I know what you're saying with the coachability stuff. That's also a kind of who watches the Watchmen situation for me, is who some of these coaches are terrible sources. Some of these scouts are terrible sources. And that's why I come away when I watch, and it's hard, but it's hard but then when I watch him on film, I see him handling protections from an offense that was giving him no help. Never having to look to his sideline for help. He was handling it all on his own. Not that it was the most complicated offense, given no help as far as surroundings and answers and everything. I wouldn't be coachable too if I thought my coaches were idiots. Like that. Like that's the other side of this coin. I wouldn't say Phil Longo 2 years ago. I think he's fine, not just because he's Wisconsin's offense coordinator now, but it's also this year's OC. It's kind of like this. I know you kind of know it when you see it. What's a good situation? What's a bad situation? So for me, I'm watching Maye. Is he competitive? Is he tough? I've been around quarterbacks that some people call moody. Even ones that we would consider really nice guys are some of the most moody guys you've ever been around because they're psycho competitive. They have no time for us mortals kind of thing, So that's what, again, this is the optimist view of it. But the game that always sticks out to me is the NC State game where they're getting their asses kicked. North Carolina is. And he runs in a touchdown, and I think it gets called back. And I've told the story twice, so I should really check my facts here. But he runs in for a touchdown, and I think it gets called back. And he freaking basically, you could see him get ticked off. And on the very next play, you can see him kind of spin the ball and kind of just kind of channel. And on the very next play, he throws a freaking heat-seeking missile, just through two guys and goes for a touchdown. But it was like he channeled that competitiveness. And again, I see the good guys do this. The good quarterbacks know how to channel that and put the freaking team on their back. And again, that's why I think Caleb and Maye do that. Just because I've seen Caleb in different ways, but they put over and over the Duke game and all that. So when I watch him, yes, I am being glass half full with a lot of stuff, but I think because of the athleticism, because of his work ethic that I know about, because of his competitive nature, I think he's going to work at those little blemishes because I've already seen improvement. And I think it's just going to keep going. I'm not saying Disco Stew, straight, always going to just go up, but I do think he has more likelihood to improve. There's some kind of NBA thinking here. It's kind of that projection of some guys. I always come back to Zach LaVine or somebody like that. It's like they have athleticism and competitiveness. That gives them more path to grow than a guy that's, maxed out or totally polished like a Jayden Daniels who's been started 50 something games. Yes, he's athletic, but I don't know mechanically if I can fix anything. This is him. This is what I'm drafting. So that's kind of the different side of the coin.
The flip side of that, though, Nate, is there are stats and trends for quarterbacks in the NFL that tell you the more games they've started in college, the more successful they're going to be when they get to the NFL, and vice versa. The fewer games they've started, when they're getting drafted on upside and potential, the less of a chance they have of succeeding at greater measure when they get to the NFL. I mean, you've seen those numbers.
Well, so now it's kind of looking at age, the younger you get into the league, because it's kind of, I know the old Bill Parcells thinking start this many games, accuracy, all that kind of stuff. Now, to me, it's more how early you start and how early you enter the league. So it's great that a Daniels, Maye, a Williams, they'll start right away. Maye was playing as a freshman, then they redshirted him, they had Howell, yada, yada. But that's a good sign. And then if you're entering the league, then we get our hands on you earlier as far as the NFL. We're getting you at 21 years old as opposed to 23 or 24, maybe back in the day, give or take. Is that good or bad? That's a whole nother conversation of and a developmental plan and reps and all that kind of stuff. But other stats, some people have taken it a little too far, I've noticed on Twitter this spring, but stuff like pressure to sack rate is a very sticky rate as far as how many times a quarterback gets pressure, how many turns in sack, because that shows off creativity. I think size, athleticism, pocket movement, all those types of things. Maye they stand well above the threshold where you're concerned. I don't know if that makes sense. They're good. Him and Williams are fine. While Daniels is extremely concerning because that stays sticky. That's kind of we're all learning, I think all of us at the same time, teams and people online and people like myself, we're just figuring out what are the sticky stats. Everyone's getting more and more data, but it's this is what baseball went through. It's okay, what is relevant? But I think stuff like that is showing that these guys are passing the thresholds of the good quarterback tier.
So right now, if you were to handicap top 3 picks, a lot of people are saying Caleb, Jayden Daniels, Drake May. You have Jayden Daniels. You just mentioned a little bit of the logic why, but I want you to dig in a little bit deeper. You have Jayden Daniels as the 20th overall
Yes.
prospect. Nate
Get into
Tice,
it.
explain yourself.
I will.
Let's get into it, man.
Get into it. No, well, first and foremost, ignore the combine weight with Jayden Daniels. We're gonna this whole presentation is gonna be on the assumption that he weighs his college weight and not 210. He probably took an Austin Powers P after that pro day weigh in. But Daniels to me is first and foremost, he's accurate. We'll start with the positives before we get into the bash fest. He's accurate. He knows what he's doing. No, I know it's gonna be great. I think he does like him, so that's why I'm excited to ask him. So he's accurate. He understands what he's going to be, what has to be done as far as offensively. He's going to translate mind-wise, mentally, I think, to the NFL very well because he has so many starts. Just like you were saying, Chad, it's just so much experience, different offenses. He knows the answers. Now, the accuracy comes all three levels, which is really nice. He shows where ball placement. He knows how to throw guys open. I wouldn't say he has good or better arm strength, but it's above average. It's above the threshold, adequate plus. You know what we say. A good debate is who has a stronger arm, him or Joe Burrow, which I think would be more of a conversation than people realize. But great athlete. That's another thing. So fast. Honestly, think he got faster as he went along in college. He looks faster than he did at Arizona State. Maybe it's just once you get into the humidity. It's the humid air instead of the dry air that makes you faster in Louisiana.
It's pushing him along. The
It
humidity
is.
It's
just gliding him. Yes. Maybe
that.
there's something to that. Like he just looks faster. I swear. Yeah. Maybe the Pac-12 needs better, or what used to be the Pac-12 needs better cameras, makes you look faster or something like that. But so getting into the negatives with him, first is size. And I just have to bring it up because quarterbacks under 205, and we can get into 210, but we'll say 205 that Jayden Daniels is. There's not a lot of modern quarterbacks that have even started a full season, much less have played a good season, had a successful above average season. Since 2000, it's Kirk Cousins and Jeff Garcia. And that's it. That's like a certain threshold. If you just I use adjusted net yards per attempt, but we won't go into it, but an above average or better season. That's it. So just 205 or below, much less 200 or below. Then there's quarterbacks you get into when Daniels he's a good athlete. He's accurate in all this. He's not a creative player. And he's not a creative thrower. He's very straight line. He's not a juker. He is not a move in the pocket and throw sidearm. He does not have that kind of creative tool in his bag that I think Williams and Maye do. Maye is extremely creative too, throwing left-handed passes and stuff. I'll just keep praising him. Just a little pot shot here. But with Daniels is when he moves off his point, when he's moved off his point in the pocket, he's looking to scramble. He's looking to run. His eyes do not look up to make a pass to extend the play. And that is fine if he was younger, if he was bigger, but because of his size and because I haven't really seen that archetype of player, the one that scrambles so much. I'm trying to find the stats I'm talking here, but he has 258 scrambles in his career, which is his own stratosphere as far as prospects or just college football players that have come out. But then also it's when he gets moved off his spot, nearly 50% of those end up as scrambles, which is just absurd. Like usually it's about 20 to 30% for guys. So it's just it's a type of play. It's a play style, the reckless play with his size, his age. Yes, he's accurate. He doesn't really work over the middle, though. He doesn't throw with aggression over the middle. If it's a high low, he throws a lot of lows, and which is fine. Again, you can make a living that way. But if you're taking a lot of sacks, if you're playing that other type of style, it's a hard living in the NFL. If you take a sack on first down, 2nd and 20, 2 6-yard gains aren't going to do it. You have to push the ball. And he'll do that on the outside. That works if you have a matchup advantage on the outside week in, week out, which he might not in the NFL. He might get into a Burrow and Bengals situation, but he might not. He might be going to would say Washington. Yeah, he might have Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson isn't really, I don't think, going to be Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas. So that is, again, it's going to be, it's not, he does a lot of things fine. He does a lot of things well, but there's a lot more alarm bells, I think, with him than I even thought going in. All these stats I looked at came from when I was watching him. And I just didn't see the aggression. I didn't see the creativity, even though he is a good athlete. So it's kind of a dichotomy when you watch him a little bit. Not just because I just want to say that word.
Yeah, my view on him, like I said, Chad, the difference between these guys is very small. My view of it is where you at as an organization, because both these guys are different in many ways, but it's all about how you want to go forward, because these guys are going to dictate how you do everything around your organization. Where, you know, I view Daniels as turning into a Lamar type, where it's like, I think he can come in and he can win now. Where if I had the ideal scenario, I would sit May for a year. I just think going from facing ACC defenses to the NFL, the leap is so extreme, and it's not the same going from the SEC to the NFL. I mean, it just isn't. The guys talk all the time that it does help playing in the SEC when you go to face these type of defenses, but I am worried about all the stuff people keep bringing up, where it's like, yeah, he is old, and he was playing against 19-year-olds, and he's 23, and it's like that is a big deal. Like, he's been around a long time, but he also improved every year, which is also something I do look for. Where it's like, I I learned greatly from Joe Burrow, because I really did think Joe Burrow was just the pieces around him. I did think Joe Burrow was really good, but it was just like he had the greatest LSU. That team in LSU was the greatest team ever put together. But you kind of quickly realize, well, it actually was because of Joe. Joe made it all work. And I kind of feel the same here with Daniels, where Daniels is getting a lot of heat because he has, an incredible offensive line, really good wide receivers. But I think he got that out of them. Like, a lot of those ball placements, it is pretty impressive what he can do. But I think everything Nate just said so true, where it's like, it's where you at organization. Like, this draft, I think whatever one of these quarterbacks does go to New England is at such a huge disadvantage compared to a guy that might be going to the Vikings or the Commanders. It's literally out of this world how big of a difference it's going to be.
That's why I don't want to take one.
Right.
I want the Patriots
Yeah.
to move back. Yeah, just as
So
team building perspective.
when I'm grading these quarterbacks, and I put Daniel above May, this was in February. My biggest thing when I first dived into it was just that May did regress this season, and there are factors into that. He did have less talent around him than the previous season. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but that to me that's where a little bit of hesitation came from. Same thing happened with Williams. Like, if you watch UFC's tapes this season compared to the previous year, it does worry you. But that's football. Like, football, guys have peak and valley years. What we're looking for is consistency, and all three of these quarterbacks, I would say they're all been very consistent. That's why it's like, it's whatever flavor you're of the month, right? So the Williams debate, I think it was over, right? Once it came out that it's like, okay, his teammates do like him. He isn't this huge diva. He's not demanding shares of the Chicago ownership. Williams is gonna be the number one pick, because that was the question there. It's like, we all know the guy's talent. Yeah. But the debate is real at number two. Like, I know Cowherd today came out and said, from his sources, he heard that it is Daniels going at number two to Washington. I reached out to a bunch of guys who, they're pretty well connected in Washington. Nothing's come out yet. And to me, I don't think they should leak it, because they have the power here. If they do like Daniels, and they know the Vikings or the Patriots really want May, trade to 3, like, move down and take Daniels or whoever you want to take, JJ, whoever it is. So this is a tough draft, Chad, because I'm gonna be honest with you. It's one where I wish I was like Nate here. Nate is dug in. He knows, like, years from now he'll be able to go back and be like, no, May was my guy. I'm not that committed to Daniels. I'm not really stake my career on Daniels. The one guy that I will say that's moved up my draft board way more than I thought he would be, and I want to hear Nate's view on him, is Penix. Like, coming out, this dude is injury prone. He's older senior. Like, Washington had all these great players around him. No wonder he would be a top pick. I talked to a lot of scouts. They think he's going to be a middle of the first round pick now. Do you have him graded out as such, or is this just February into April hype we're getting here with the quarterback position?
I've heard, like, all over the place with him. My grade right now is like late second, early third on him. Some of that's from age and the injury stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about him is he pushes the ball. I'm always going to like guys that push the ball, because that's so much harder to get a guy to do than the other way around. I like, it is like, I was around Derek Carr, and it scarred me, man. Like, it is. So you have to have that kind of trained aggression, and then just go, once in a while they make a mistake and you go, oh, hey, bring it back in, just take the check down there. So much better to have that. So Penix does that. And Penix will push the ball. Doesn't take sacks, finds a way to get rid of the ball. Like, he doesn't, as if he's pressured, he gets rid of the ball. The thing for me is that's a good and bad thing. sometimes you want him extending a little bit more. It's very robotic. It's very like, yes, move one place in the pocket, one step in the pocket. The guy's not there. I'll get rid of the ball, as opposed to maybe extend, maybe throw a little sidearm. And why I keep bringing this up is because that's a prerequisite in the NFL to be a not just a replacement level starter, a spot starter type, to be like a legit good top 12-ish guy, top 10-ish guy. Like these are the things you kind of need. You need that throw creativity. You need to kind of extend to make a throw to, because not everything's going to be great in the NFL. Two offensive linemen are going to be out. You're on your rookie undrafted tight end. Your offensive coordinator sucks. Like, you know, like all this stuff happens. So you just have to make it work. And so that's where I always weighted that. Penix to me kind of needs a lot to operate. If everything's fine, he has the pre-snap read right. Nobody falls down. Offensive line doesn't get beat. Machine. Ooh, just a gun, a Gatling gun out there. But to me, it's not the creativity. He needs a bigger platform to throw from. I've kind of started comparing him to like a Diet Coke Byron Leftwich with a better athlete.
I've heard a lot of Teddy Bridgewater comparisons.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah. Where they just need a platform, and because they're not going to like throw sidearm or anything. Even though Penix has that funky throwing style, it's the same every time. So he needs that. He needs that launch, that launch pad to throw from. Again, that's hard. That's really hard in the NFL to get that all the time. If he goes to the Eagles, hell yeah. Like he could get that all the time. Like he goes to a great offensive line. 20 teams don't have good offensive line. So I like him. Like I've liked him, hated him. I shouldn't say hate him. Came way down on him, kind of hipster like. And then I've kind of come back up a little bit on him. And I've settled into that high end backup. Could be a nice starter, like a good middle tier starter type, because I just think there are some ceiling limitations with him. Even if he's because of the older age and all that stuff.
So you mentioned there's a trend right now. You want guys who have started a lot of games who aren't too old yet. Yes. One guy on that list, JJ McCarthy,
right?
Who we haven't even talked about.
Right.
So there is a bet on the board, -200, over 4.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. We expect JJ McCarthy to be one of them. He has not come up in this conversation, despite threading that needle of lots of starts, young guy. Nate, your take on JJ McCarthy?
Lots of starts, young guy, not a lot of throws when you watch him, but he took forever for me to finally like have my opinion, because it took me forever to watch every game to get enough where I'm like, yeah, okay, I got you. Likes him way more than I thought I would going in, but still not all the way there where I was like, yeah, top 10 pick. Hell yeah. No, I was even saying it's rich to go top 20. And I'm still there, but I understand. And I think a lot of people have come to the same conclusion here. It's like the Shanahan guys are going to freaking love this guy. Like he just does what they like. He rockets the ball over the middle. He throws well on the move. Like he has a loose arm. He's a pretty good athlete. Kind of getting overhyped a little bit as an athlete. I don't believe his weight either. Even though I think his frame to grow, and he's a little younger than Daniel. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he could put on a little bit of weight, but all that size concern stuff, bringing it up with him, that I did with Daniels, because it's only fair. But I think, yeah, there's more room for him for projection, because some of the small things you take away from him, I don't want to get into the whole intangible, BS, like people in meetings and stuff like that, but more what I've seen when I'm watching him is they put a lot on his plate, as far as, and I know Harbaugh does this to all of his quarterbacks, but kills and checks and different play calls and just a very wordy packages that they have to be aware of. And there's a sequence against Penn State that I've come back to, and I've talked about this before on our podcast on The Athletic, but I'm watching him backed up against Penn State, a game that he only threw the ball like 8 times, and crowd's going nuts. You can see it on the film, just all going nuts. And he calmly is killing the play and changing the play. He's communicating to each offensive lineman. He's signaling, snap the ball, hand it off. And it's just a handoff. It's 20 seconds of film watching. Then the next play does it all again. But he's so calm. And I know I don't want to extrapolate just those plays, but if you watch him, there's a lot of that on his film. So I want to bring that up because I'm sure in meetings he rocked. I'm sure quarterback coaches, or if they liked him, they're going to love him now, because like he probably, all that stuff, all the whiteboard stuff, he's going to rock because he already has exposure to that. And so long-winded way of me saying I like him, but top 20 is very rich still to me, and top 10 is still rich to me. But I understand if he went to 20s, but he's not going to go in the 20s. He's going to go well before that. But to me, that's where I was comfortable with him. I have a second round grade on him, inflated half a round. That's late, late first. That's where I'd be comfortable with him. My concerns with him, size, already brought that up. Can't throw left, weirdly. He's got a little Trubisky to him. Anytime he has to push the ball throwing left, all of his stats just drop off a cliff. So that is something he has to fix. It's just a quirk I noticed watching him, and then I dove into the stats. I was like, oh, this is a thing. He goes from 60% of the completion percentage throwing right past 10 yards. It's 40 throwing left. And it's a good sample size too. It's not just a couple throws. So it's a weird thing because he overstrides and all that. He just needs time. He needs a good situation. I wouldn't like him with the Patriots. Vikings, I could understand because of their surroundings, the timeline they're on. Totally understand this argument that they want to try and get him. But if they're teams that need a lot of help and we need a guy to be our guy right away and put the team on his back, I have some hesitations with that, even if I do think he has kind of starter qualities.
I just want to piggyback off what he's saying. He is the classic case, Chad, of a scout darling, where he was the top recruit out of high school into college. And he went to a college, played in a pro system, started a ton of games, and won a national championship. It's all there. People just talking themselves. All the scouts I talk to, it's I'm kind of in the same boat of Native. I had a second round grade on him, and I'm being bullied into making him a mid-tier first round pick, where it's I don't believe it myself, but because there is a cost premium to the quarterback position, it's not because of Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts won the second round. Looking back, he probably should have been end of the first round pick. I think that's happened here with JJ, where it's his upside is such they can't let him drop that late into the end of the first.
Ecosystem's changed a little bit.
Yeah,
how teams value these guys. Yeah,
totally.
Even people are like, "Hey, he's only could be the 12th best quarterback." People are like, "Fine, we'll just build up around him." It's kind of the people are trying to find different ways to win outside of just getting it. Oh, give me Mahomes. Oh, spend like the Yankees. They're trying to find their version, and this is kind of the money ball, I guess, is get a cheap, okay quarterback.
When you say JJ McCarthy can't throw left, it's like you're saying he's the Chevy Chase of European Vacation. He can't get left.
Or Zoolander.
See, guys, here's the thing. I'm on spring break right now, and every time I speak, my kid gives me such a withering look that I have no place to put these dad jokes. And so, sadly, you guys have to listen to me make every dad joke I can make. And by the way, I did let the Jeff Garcia moment pass, but I know Matt Mitchell would be remiss if I did not mention the time 20-something years ago when I wrote a feature about Jeff Garcia and spent several days with him in his hometown of Gilroy, California for ESPN, the magazine. All right, Nate.
Oh.
Yeah, what do you think of that, right?
I was like it. It was probably the year that that he passed the threshold I looked at.
It was 2001. It was 2001. All right. Last question, Nate, before we let you go. We've talked all about the quarterbacks, but it's not just going to be quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Who is the offensive player? Who is the defensive player we should be thinking about that we aren't thinking about?
Oh, to go just in the first round?
I'd say give me the guys you're just looking at who aren't getting enough attention.
Oh my God. Insert an offensive lineman. There might be 9 offensive linemen going in the first round. It's going to be a heavy O-line draft. There's going to be a lot of fans faking and clapping like they know who just got drafted and going nuts. They show that little pocket of fans each time. So yeah, any offensive lineman insert there. I would say let's go with Penix's teammate, Troy Fatanu. He is a left tackle, but he could I legit think he could play all 5 spots on the offensive line. He's just a technician, much better athlete than he got credit for, which he showed at the combine. Longer arms he got credit for. He's a Vegas guy as well. So I got to give that a shout out. But yeah, he's one guy. And really just, I would say another offensive lineman is Christian Haynes from UConn. I've been kind of beating his drum a little bit. But yeah, if we want to go skill position, let's go maybe sneak in the first round. AD Mitchell, I think for sure he's a first rounder at this point if he passed the character stuff from Texas, but a fan of his. A little inconsistent stat profile, a little concerning, but he moves and does things that number 1 guys do. And that is sometimes worth a bet if you're like the Chiefs or the Bills and you need a guy and you don't usually get a chance at these types of guys. He's the type of guy that can maybe stake defense. Oh, Cooper DeJean just tested. Quinyon Mitchell, the cat's out of the bag about him, so I can't really bring him up. Oh, Michael Hall, defensive tackle, Ohio State. Been banging his drum a little bit. Ohio State had so many defensive linemen, so they rotated a bunch. So he's kind of like he's very young. I think he's only 20 at this point. Will turn 21 just before the season. Kind of a small I'm extrapolating a lot here, but a small sample size wonder. Tested really well. Does a lot of things that I like. Gap shooting, kind of 3-tech. So he's a guy to watch out. Might go higher than I think people are considering right now. I was pretty high on my big board, but I think the secret's out on him too. Really sexy, right? Gambling show. Talk some defensive line. Talk some offensive guards from UConn.
I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait for people to freak out when the Chargers take Joe Alt with the as a top 5 pick.
Do you hear them trickling the news?
Nuts.
All the Chargers coaches, one after another, going, "We value offensive line." They're like trying to they're bracing the fan base. They're like, we're telling you guys,
letting everybody know. Do not get too excited. That'll be the classic Harbaugh pick. Like he's just gonna get up there, grit his teeth, doesn't want to please anybody.
That's
he's
it.
Just gonna make this pick, screw everybody else.
Yep. I know. I think the fools are the people thinking that he'll go Brock Bowers or Dudze or something like that, who are awesome. But no, look at every Harbaugh team since the Gulf War. It's been just freaking line play and running the freaking ball. That's what they do. Right. So he's going to get an offensive lineman.
All right. Nate Tice, the Athletic Football Show. Thank you for joining our podcast. Fantastic stuff. As always, your takes on the draft will go down in history one way or the other. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by North Carolina's newest sportsbook, Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. A gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Be sure to catch our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page Tuesday, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, with special guest NFL lineman, former protector of Aaron Rodgers, David Bakhtiari. Ooh. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until Tuesday, love you.